What's going on, you guys? My name is Jonathan Dickinson, and today I want to do a little book review for you guys. If you're new to my YouTube channel, welcome. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed your content. Today, the book I want to be discussing is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Sorry, I gotta make sure it's all good. So I just finished this book. As you can see, I have a little bit of notes and passages that I really liked. I started this book, I don't want to say on a whim, but I've heard a lot of good things about this book, but I didn't know too much about it. I knew a little bit about Stoicism, but I'm not like a philosopher or anything like that. So I picked it up. He looks pretty sick, and I was like, might as well give it a shot. And so I guess to start off, I want to talk about who Marcus Aurelius was. He was an emperor of Rome, I believe, between 161 and 180 AD. He's known as the last of the 5 great emperors of Rome because during that time they experienced the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace. It was a time, I guess, of prosperity and really good time to be a Roman. And unfortunately, he was succeeded by his son Commodus, who many think is a terrible ruler. I haven't read too much about him, so I can't judge him unless you've seen the movie Gladiator. Shout out Russell Crowe for doing a great acting job, but he was pretty awful in that movie. So Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is when he was on the northern front of the battlefield. He was leading the Roman army against the Germanic tribes, and I guess during that time he would go into his barracks and write to himself. And I think an alternate title for this book is To Himself, or Letters to Himself. And I guess he's just addressing himself in a way of meditation. Hence the word meditation, in a way of reflection. And so let's get into it a little bit. So while he was writing these, he didn't mean for them to be published, as far as I'm aware. But the way he wrote it makes some people think that maybe he did. I'm not quite sure. But it was basically just his journal entries. And throughout these entries, he explores Christianity. He explores what we describe as nihilism, how nothing really matters. But I don't think that's what he called it and what he meant by it. But it's kind of a nihilistic nature. And some other themes are what he calls the relationship between the microcosm and the macrocosm. So you're the person and the universe, or the cosmos, or what he describes as the whole. So that's another theme. Virtue, so what it means to be virtuous, what it means to be a good man or a good person. And another thing he talks about is self-retreat into his inner citadel. And he describes this in one of his passages, and he talks about how men want to retreat to the hills, retreat to the sea, retreat to some place in order to reflect, or in order to recharge, or what have you. But what Marcus Aurelius is saying is that you always have the opportunity to retreat in your own inner citadel, and this is by your own self-reflection. This is by addressing yourself, talking to yourself, and meditating in a way. And you don't really need to go off to this far distant land in order to accomplish this, which I thought was really cool. But to get into a couple of the highlights that I really took away from it and that I really liked, because I am a master's student and I really am into science. One of the biggest things to me is science communication and just communication in general. And he kind of addresses this in a few different, I guess they're called chapters, and how you respectfully communicate something from someone. So I don't want to read too much of this, but I want to read just one passage to you guys, just to kind of address this point. I don't want to ruin too much. And so this one is from Book 5, Chapter 28. Are you angry with the man who smells like a goat, or the one with foul breath? What will you have him do? That's the way his mouth is. That's the way his armpits are. So it is inevitable that they should give out odors to match. But the man is endowed with reason, you say, and if he puts his mind to it, he can work out why he causes offense. Well, good for you. So you too are no less endowed with reason. Bring your rationality then to bear on his rationality. Show him, tell him. If he listens, you will cure him, and no need for anger, neither hypocrite nor whore. And so that last part was interesting to me, neither hypocrite nor whore. And I think what he means by this is that this isn't necessarily telling you to just let him be, or let somebody be who might be, in the wrong or not doing themselves a service by acting a certain way. If you know that they're in the wrong, or if you know that they're not acting a certain way, you should try and communicate that to them and try and explain why it might not be the best thing for them. But at the end of the day, you can't hold that against them, because we all do stuff in our lives that maybe we're not aware of, maybe we're not competent of, and not that it isn't our fault, but anger isn't going to solve anything. Being angry at that person isn't going to, as he says, cure their armpit smell or their foul breath. It's not going to do anything to help either of you. And so just one more to kind of drive this point home. So this one is in book 11, chapter 18, verse 9. And he goes, kindness is invincible if it is sincere, not fawning or pretense. What can the most aggressive man do to you if you continue to be kind to him? If, as opportunity arises, you gently admonish him and take your time to re-educate him at the very moment when he is trying to do you harm. No, son, we were born for other purposes than this. There is no way that I can be harmed, but you are harming yourself, son. And show him delicately how things are, making the general point that bees do not act like this, or any other creatures of gregarious nature. But your advice must not be ironic or critical. It should be affectionate, with no hurt feelings, not a lecture or a demonstration to impress others, but the way you would talk to someone by himself, irrespective of company. So I think that one's particularly striking, because especially in science, with scientists or science communicators, it's easy to be perceived as arrogant, or to be perceived as pompous or something of that nature. And when someone perceives you as arrogant, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, they're not going to want to listen to you, they're not going to want to heed your advice. So it's crucial, if you're trying to impart something on someone, to do it from a place of you're just trying to help them, you're just trying to communicate something to them, and not that you're trying to talk down to them, or you're trying to lecture them, you should do this because this is what you need to do. Because ultimately, neither of those things are going to help that person, because they're just going to be like, you know what, screw you, I don't want to listen to you. So I think that passage really, drives the point home that, like, if you really want to help somebody, you can't be angry with them. You can't be, hold anything against them. Just share what you know, share what, you think they might need to know. And if they take it, that's great. If they don't, well, then you've done all you can. You can't, reach into their mind and change their ways, or change the way they think, which I think is really, really, really powerful. And another aspect of this book that I really liked is this idea of duty and doing what is right. And so I think we all kind of learn this as kids. You kind of do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because you're going to get a reward for it, not because you think people want that from you. And you learn this in elementary school when you go pick up a piece of trash and throw it away because it's the right thing to do, and you get maybe an award or whatever because the teacher sees you from across the playground or whatever. And I think that's like kind of what he's saying here is that you be a good person because that is what a good person is, what is required of you, not because you want to impress your peers, not because you want to impress somebody else. And to drive this point home, I want to get one last verse. Let no one have the chance to accuse you with any truth of not being sincere or a good man. Make sure that anyone taking this view of you is a liar. This is wholly up to you. Who is there to prevent you of being good and sincere? You must just decide to live no longer if you won't have these qualities, and reason to abandon the man who won't. So yeah, he has many verses like this of, you do what you're supposed to do because what you're supposed to do. And I think he also, to take it a step further, Marcus Aurelius, he kind of contrasts duty and pleasure, in the sense that people think that pleasure is where you derive joy, but he would contend that duty and discipline is where you derive joy, and more a holistic sense of meaning. And so I really appreciate that, because especially today with social media and with Instagram, what have you, people want to do things because they think that's what their peers want to see, or they want to impress their peers. But I think that really the staple is you do good things because you're supposed to do them. You be a good person because that is what the whole is intended to you, to put it in his words. And I really, really like that idea. He goes through many other things in this book, many other ideas, many other virtues. But those are the two that I really liked. And so, yeah. So why should you read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius? I think there's a lot of wisdom. When I was going into this book, I wasn't expecting such actionable, practical words that are applicable to today. I always, I think a lot of people have the impression that, however long away this was, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, whatever, that people were flawed in some way that is different than today. And by that I mean, they had slavery back then, so they must have been flawed in a sense that's different from us. But really, if you really think about it, man from the time of conception till now has faced the same constraints and the same burden from today, and that's virtue, driving joy, meaning, stuff like that. And those are issues that span the length of time. They're not just issues of today. And I think that reading this book was a good wake-up call, and that men from this time, or men from today, or just people in general, weren't too different. The life might have been a little different, the way everything looks might have been a little different, but the big questions still remain from here till today. And so yeah, I think you should read it because of that. The chapters and the books are pretty easy to read, and they're broken up into these chunks, if you can see. And so if you don't have a lot of time to read, you can just read one chapter, 2 chapters. That's what I kind of did. And I think that's really the best way to read it, because every chapter in each book has something profound and something you kind of got to digest. And you can't just scan through it and kind of get the bigger meaning, because there's a lot of different motifs and ideas that he's kind of going over in this book. So that's why, another reason why I think you should read it. Overall, I would give this book probably a 9 out of 10. This is one of my favorites. I know it's still early in 2021, but this might be one of my favorites of 2021. I don't know, it might be a little early to tell. So yeah, I'd give it a 9 out of 10, and I think you guys should pick it up. If you have read it, I want to hear from you. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you took away from it, and if you agreed with what I said. Did you think that do you think that those are 2 things you can take away from the book, if that makes sense? So yeah, just comment down below. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys next time.